InterviewsWithPower.com, your source for what makes successful people tick. Here's Jeff Stevens with your latest Interview with Power.
And I'm very happy to have a guy that has risen quite high in the radio world and has a lot of interesting things to say to people that are interested in a career in radio, but also people interested in achieving success with whatever they happen to be doing. And I am with Jim Cook right now, the president of the Creative Services Group of Clear Channel Radio. Jim, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for your time today. And the one thing I would ask you is that as a president of Creative Services Group, first of all, what does the Creative Services Group do for Clear Channel? And then what is your role like within that group?
Well, we are a creative group, as the title clearly indicates, inside of Clear Channel. And primarily, this entity that I started back in 2004 is dedicated to helping advertisers, be it major brands or local advertisers, find new, innovative, creative uses of all of the ways that we have as a company have to touch audiences today and resonate those messages with them in meaningful ways to help with their brand.
It's interesting you say that because Clear Channel is, and I might have spoken a misnomer at the beginning, Clear Channel did start out as a radio group, and they are the biggest radio group in the U.S. However, you bring up something interesting as to using creative ways to deliver results for advertisers, because Clear Channel, while starting in radio, is not just radio anymore, and maybe you could expand on that.
That's true, and recently, within the past year, as a matter of fact, the company itself went through a name change and is now Clear Channel Media and Entertainment. Many of the ways that we have to speak with audiences today go way past what people think of as the traditional mainstream radio methods. It was those tall towers out in farmers' fields, I guess, that people thought of as the only way we had to speak with, communicate with, and have a dialogue with audiences. But today, through our online methods with things like iHeartRadio, our on-site opportunities that can be very targeted to local and regional events like Wango Tango out in Los Angeles, which is coming up soon, or Jingle Ball in New York, which comes up at the end of the year. Those kinds of things are additional opportunities for us to interface with audiences.
What are some things that you've been most proud of since starting this group? And maybe give a sense of what your day is like and some of the cool things that we've either heard or seen but not been aware that Jim Cook has been behind them.
Well, it'd be a wonderful ego boost if I were the one that was solely responsible, but we have a great group of people here that I've managed to pull together, and I think I'm most proud of having a bunch of people here that are just so incredibly talented and come from various disciplines and understandings. And at the get-go, I wanted to marry some of the best and brightest of radio's producers and writers with some of the best and brightest from the ad agency world. And I set out in 2004 to create a whole new culture that married those two together. And I think we've been fairly successful at that. So on our staff, we have some of the creative directors who were formerly with top agencies like BBDO and Chiat, and you name it. These people have pedigrees that are very, very impressive as writers from the agency world. And along with them, we have a Platinum Award-winning artist as our music director. We've got producers who have won awards from Clio's to Mercury Awards. And together, we just have a wonderful time in our little sandbox, playing with new and different ways to speak with audiences and with messages that are targeted to what is important to specific audiences. So I think that that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of and have the best time doing on a daily basis.
What some of the campaigns that you've worked on, what gives you the biggest smile as you've reflected on them? There's probably way too many to even mention in a short interview like this, but maybe just a few that really kind of embodied that team collaboration you were just talking about?
Well, we work on them daily, and we're just finished a large campaign for 20th Century Fox. I can't give you too many details, but it's about an upcoming movie that's going to be released this summer that is a blockbuster. We had a lot of fun with that. We've worked very closely with Disney. I've done a lot of work with Disney parks and in ways for them to speak to our audiences, but also engage their own employees with internal metrics at the same time. And there are some wonderfully emotionally deep relationships that we have with nonprofit organizations, and working to help to drive their messages forward and do things that that in the greater scheme of things are really important in life.
Now, you started out yourself in local radio, and you've ascended to the very high position with a great company. And maybe give a sense of people that, and I want to delve into radio in just a second because of the shared background that we have in radio. I come from radio as well, and want to talk about specifically to people that might be interested in a career. But let's start with the success metrics that it takes for you to take a career that started out locally, and now you're really, when you're working with companies like Disney and 20th Century Fox, it's safe to say that your career is now of an international nature.
Yeah, weird about that, huh?
Yeah.
What can I tell you other than, sometimes just things happen in life that take you down different roads and paths, and I think having the basic understanding that you do things that you like, that are important to you, and when you keep that at the lead, you always seem to find the right thing, and eventually and inevitably that's what you enjoy doing. And I've often counseled people that have worked for me that if you're not enjoying coming in and doing it, then it doesn't really matter anymore. You should find something else. You got to love what you do, and then you will find your own level in it. And we just have such a wonderful, fun playtime here that coming into work is something that you can't wait to get in the door and play on the next game. And it's having that as your goal rather than position as your goal.
So when you're looking to say that, so you never started out, I should say, you never started out with saying that when you were on local radio, you never said, hey, I'm going to be the president of a major group of a major corporation. It was just basically, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, but basically your goal was to make the best radio possible, or then program the best. You were a program director at one point, program the best station you could. But am I getting the message that it's love what you do, have fun along the way, and be passionate about it?
Definitely. Those are exactly what I'm saying. And I've worked in radio, I've worked in television. I've managed inside of both of those realms. And again, unless it's something that at the end of the day, whatever you're making, whatever you're doing, is something that you like, something that you thought, gee, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that. That made me laugh. That made me cry. That made me think. If you cannot have that response to what you're doing, then you should seek out something else that will give that to you, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day in life. I feel as though I belong. I feel as though I'm important, and I like what I do.
And that really can be into any discipline or profession that you're into, whether you own a karate studio or you have decided that you want to be the best, and I use this example all the time, that's why I had to chuckle at myself, the best tool and die maker you possibly can be, the best salesperson you possibly can be. It's all about having the fun and the passion and being happy with your results at the end of the day.
Yeah, the most successful people in the world are those who have unique individual visions, and they stick to them. They believe in them, and they love what they do.
So they just don't give up. They just keep going along because it's just so fun to go along with what they're doing.
Steve Jobs is a great example of a guy who had a very different way of working, a very unique understanding of what it takes for something to feel right, to sound right, to look right, and he would not have any time for anyone that didn't play into that with him. And, for that, many people thought he was difficult or crazy, but he launched a revolution, and all of us are a part of that now.
Just a few more questions, Jim. One thing, I can't let a president of a creative services group of Clear Channel Radio, which you are, of course, I can't let you go without at least having you impart some wisdom to some people that might want to make radio a profession. And it's not even just radio anymore, as you said. It's a multimedia approach. But I remember when I started out many, many moons ago, there used to be live DJs all the time. You'd have weekend overnights where you could kind of work on your craft. You could work on your craft at 3 in the morning and not really have to worry that you were going to blow anything up, so to speak. You wanted to do the best you could, but you weren't too worried about it. Now, kids coming up are in a position where they almost have to start maybe in an afternoon drive because they just don't have the weekend overnights or anything anymore. So, two things. How are you acquiring new talent into the radio business? And then number two, what would be your suggestions for somebody that wants to make a career out of this?
Well, that's a great question and a depthy one. I've always looked outside of the radio business for wonderful creatives because they bring something to us that otherwise, if you think purely incestuously, you never find. So I encourage people to look beyond just simple commercial broadcast radio as their way or their entry into this as something they like to do. The human voice is, singularly the most compelling thing we have as human beings. It's the beginnings of communication. It's cavemen sitting around the campfire telling the story of the hunt. Right? There's nothing more compelling than the human voice. It can be in song, it can be in story, it can motivate us it can inspire us to something. It can do all kinds of things. And if you think about that, I could show you the picture of a house, and we will both see the same house. But if I say to you the word house, or better yet, the radio word home, what do you see? Do you see the one you live in now? Do you see the one you grew up in? Do you see it from the inside or maybe from the outside? Whatever you see, it's your home. And what I see is mine. And it's that direct emotional connection between the word and the brain that is so incredibly powerful. And the ways to do that are so much broader today than they ever were when I got into radio when I was a kid. The internet is there. The democratization that the internet has brought to everyone's ability to hop in and say something and do something and try something is wonderful. What a great cauldron for creativity. Just hop in and do it. You can record yourself, you can record music, you can do all kinds of things and put them on the internet, and you don't need a radio station to do it. It's a great place to start.
Interviews with Power actually is an example of that, because this is 20 years ago. If I had started this, I would have had to have a talk radio show and probably be only able to reach my local market. And now this site is giving me the ability, anybody with a browser or even a smartphone can get these interviews.
Well, there you go. I mean, you're exactly right. This is a wonderful example of not needing to wait for someone to open the door for you. Technology has provided the opportunity for you to go through your own.
Okay, Jim, one last question, and again, much appreciative of your time today. I always ask the last question and allow the person that I'm interviewing to just pretend that they have the mic for a second, and the audience is sitting there, the people that are motivated for success, and allow you to just basically open up the floor to you and say, hey, what would you say to these people right now as to the single biggest thing they can do as they try to achieve success in their own lives?
Well, I would say that it starts with, it's an evolution, it's a process, right? And it begins with emulating those things that you like, those things that inspire you, those things that you think are cool or good or fun, you begin by emulating them. You begin by copying them until you get that copying down so strong that you're as good as or close to as good as the thing that inspired you after a period of time. And then you start to invent your own. And it's that wonderful transition period from going from emulating to originating that is marvelous to experience. And you don't usually even realize it when it's occurring. And depending on your arc, it can happen at any point and at any time during that evolution. You begin to create brand new things that are just as inspirational as the things that inspired you, and they will inspire someone else.
Well, Jim Koch, thank you very much. Jim Koch, the president of the Creative Services Group, that I now know is not Clear Channel Radio, but it's Clear Channel Media and Entertainment. Jim, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff.